Hello everyone, here psst.one. Today another interview for the Touch Designer Summit series. We spoke with Maotik, a French artist based in Montreal. He was well known in 2013 for the first real-time visual dome performance. After that experience he started to travel the world for workshops, installation and audio-video performance in all kind of setup. But you will see all this stuff, so enjoy! How did you start your career?
I started to study illustration and computer graphics in a university in London. It was called the London College of Printing. Now it's called London College of Communication, where I did a digital media production degree, where we started to do website, audio editing, video editing, and some kind of programmation. Then I moved to Barcelona in a university called Pompeu Fabra, where I did a master in digital art, in sound and visual, and it was part of the MTG, the Music Technology Group, which was very fast forward in terms of technology and new way to create music and visuals. And I did this master in 2004, I think I finished, and then I just kept on working on new media art, starting working on installation, interactive installation, but also working on with the collective of theater, working with dancers, actors, and real-time visuals. Also start as many people in our field, as a VJ in the clubs, building my own tools to create my own visuals. And then 6 years ago now, I moved to Montreal, where I started to work for this company, Moment Factory, where we started to work for a huge scale installation as interactive installation for the Los Angeles airport terminal, or for the world tour of Nine Inch Nails, doing real-time visuals. And in 2013, I did this piece, DROMOS, in a dome, which was really had a lot of feedback, positive feedback in the world, and so then I decided to start my career as an independent artist. And since the last 5 years, I just explore technology, art, and science, and develop new kind of work experiences.
How do you get in this generative style? Was an aesthetic research?
No, it's not aesthetic, I think. It's more about feeling. I think some people do render visual, which are much more elaborate in terms of visuals, quality and details, but I don't think we can't now get the same level with generative visual. But what I like is just respond to real data, and it can be people interaction, can be sound, and can be any data you can retrieve on the internet. So for me, it makes a lot of sense in the art concept to represent the here and now, and to represent the way it is in an abstract way or different way that we normally see things. Working with music as well, I worked a lot of musicians. Now I start to do my own sound, doing generative sound, and it becomes almost by using randomness and using this kind of things that are not timeline based. It's all event based. Create almost intelligence of the visuals, and you never get bored to see your visual because they're never exactly the same anytime. So it becomes more like an audiovisual sculpture that just lives by itself. I'm very much into this kind of aspect of the generative visual, where you can really create something that reacts differently each time.
Get a lot of resonance in 2013 for DROMOS, your audio-video immersive performance in Dome. What is the story of this project?
Well, this is a long story actually. We started to work on this project with a French musician called Fraction in 2009. We had this idea to do a piece about this French philosopher called Paul Virilio, who developed this concept about dromology. He said about like the more we invent like new technology, more it speeds up like the data and become like uncontrollable somehow. So then I thought about how we could just represent this notion, feeling of acceleration for people, and I imagine like an immersive like scenography where people were just like sit down inside a circle and where like some LED light were traveling around them, following like the sound with the surround sound system. And we did like a first version in France in 2011 in Rennes in a festival called Maintenant. And the day after like the presentation, I was flying to Montreal to live there, and I discovered that the dome, like the full dome called SATosphere, the Société des Arts Technologiques, and I thought, this is exactly, I was a bit frustrated by the result because we didn't have much budget to buy like a lot of equipment, so we did DIY stuff, like soldering like LED and making our own screen by ourselves. And now when I arrived at Montreal, I saw like, everything is there, I just have to plug my stuff and we can just continue the project. And I handed like the project to the director of production. He said, this is very interesting, so you should start to do like a training about like a surround sound and also like spherical visual. And at that time there were no one who did like a real-time visual in the dome, so I just do like a real-time visual. It was no point for me to do it like pre-rendered. There were no like much relation with the concept or anything, so I started to develop with the technician there like tools with Touch Designer to know how to make it live, to make a real-time visual inside the dome. And after maybe a few weeks, we managed to develop like a shader, distortion shader, to be able to map the dome with the visuals. And then I learned everything by myself, like working on things with like zero notion or zero references, before. So I think like the success of this work as well, it was the first maybe experiment in this kind of field, and working with new like technology of real time, and without having any references, that brought me to like working on this aesthetic and things like this. And I think that's why it became so successful.
Can you talk about Areum?
Areum was my last project I did. I won a grant from NCAC, the European Network Association, that gives like 5 grants a year to create like a new piece. And I won like this grant and spent 1 month last year in Girona, in Spain, in a place called Laboral, where they gave me like a studio space, but also access to a fab lab. And the idea was to, my concept was the following, a bit the continuation of a project I had already made called Flow. Flow was a visualization of an ocean that takes real-time data to simulate an ocean. So it takes like the weather state, if it's sunny, rainy, like the wind direction, the wind speed, the tide, the position of the moon, and different things. So the idea was to get to different locations in the world, and depending of the data, the ocean will morph and will just change according to all those parameters and the sound as well. And I really like this project, and I wanted to continue this kind of data visualization. And the idea, also interested about talking about what are the technology today and how we use it and why we use it. And I think as an artist, interesting also to deal about this kind of new gadget that we all have now with our pocket or we use, but this is to understand a bit like more why we use it, why we are using it. And he actually like came in, like the place I had was a big, huge like venue of 18 meter by 18 meter, like a square and a 12 meter high, and they asked me to do a piece there, but I would stay like for 6 months, and with the floor projection. And my idea was to use like a virtual drone that will just fly according to the location where I am, and according to what the drone fly over, it will just like create the visuals according to that. So I take like GPS data, I take the weather data as well, and I take some topography data as well. If it's a river, if it's like a wood or things like this. So like the sound is all connected to those parameters and change according to what the drone is flying over. So like the idea was to scan with Google Earth like the whole superficie where I am, and to make like random path of the drone in different places, but it's never like the same path, and according to what is flying over, if it's a city, and the content change like dynamically.
What are you working on?
So I think I've been doing a lot like public installation and data viz, and I want to continue doing them. You know, is something I'm really interested in. My only frustration until now is that I need to always like ask someone to do the sound for me, and because I don't have time necessarily, and also maybe I don't like control the media as good as the visual or touch designer I do now. So now I'm in residency in Scotland in a place called Cove Park. Since the last 3 weeks, I have one week more, and where I just focus on like a sound design and sound ambient, and I'm very interested into like the physicality of the sound to adapt it to like to the visuals. So not doing like something too musical, but something that really like I like the surround and the way like the sound immersive sound, where we can really feel like the physicality of object and movement. And I think like had to take some time off to study that a little bit, and maybe go to a direction where the sound and the visual are even more connected than just following the tempo or following like some kind of frequencies. I think it's an area that still has a lot of potential of discovering, and we are just maybe like at the very beginning of the potential between both. And I like also the narrative or the storyline behind that, where we can really create something that is just not like a great visual with great music, but something that tells things. Yeah. So.